Welcome to Price This House.
Hi, I'm Dave O'Neil, broker-owner of Century 21 Spindler & O'Neil.
And I'm Kimberly O'Neil Mara of Century 21 Spindler & O'Neil. Thanks for watching.
We have a great show planned today. We're going to cover our normal topics, and we have a special guest for Talk of the Town, Amy Luckiewicz from the Youth Services Division of North Reading. So why don't we get to just the facts. We'll start with North Reading single families. For the second quarter of 2014, there were 52 closed units versus 46 units a year ago in the second quarter of 2013. That's an increase of 13%. The average list price for the second quarter was $506,000 versus last year it was $540,000, which means the average list price was down about 6%. However, the average sale price of $498,613 versus last year's of $537,743 means that the average sales price was down about 7.2%. The total number of days on the market, 63 days versus 66 days a year ago, which is basically unchanged. For year to date, which would be January 1 through June 30th, we had 74 units closed in North Reading versus 68 a year ago, about 8% for closings. The average list price of $529,387 versus the average list price of $489,342 a year ago, the average list price is also up about 8%. Average sales price for the same 6 months is $525,820 versus the average sale price a year ago of $481,793, meaning the average sales price this year is up about 9%. These very, very close numbers all the way around. Market in North Reading seems to be up about 8 or 9%. The total days on the market of 76 for this year. Last year was 66, and this year 13% up. Moving into North Reading condos, the second quarter of 2014 we had 10 closings versus the second quarter of 2013 there were 14 closings. That shows to be a little bit of a decrease. That shows to be a little bit of a decrease, but again, it's a very, very tight time period. Average list price of $341,650 versus a year ago. Average list price of $256, showing the average list price for North Reading condos in the second quarter is up about 32.9%. The average sales price for the second quarter is $333,830. The average sales price is $251,714, or a 32.6% increase year over year. Total days on market 113 versus a year ago 69. Again, days on market is up about 63% for condos, which is kind of a little bit of a surprise. There hasn't been all that many condos on the market, so that's probably why that number is a little bit higher.
And it was a higher price point, so sometimes the higher priced inventory in the condo market will sit a little bit longer.
Sure. We'll go into the year to date for condos. This year has been 14 the first 6 months versus 18 a year ago. Which is down about 22%. If you remember the first 6 months of the year, there was very, very little inventory in any price range. The average list price for the condos in that 6-month period is $311 this year versus a year ago was $251. The average sales price of $303,857 versus a year ago $245,167, which means the average sales price is up 23.9% for North Reading condos. What a big increase. Total days on the market, again, falls in the same realm, 113 days this year, 69 days last year, a 32% increase. Moving on to North Reading multifamilies, we didn't have any in either time period. And again, that just goes with the very limited multifamily market in the North Reading community. Same thing for year to date, 0 this year. North Reading land, we had 1 unit last year. This year we had an average sales price of $132,000, average sales price of $690,000. When you're talking about year to date, the number of land closings, 3 this year versus 2 last year. Average list price this year is $206. Average list price last year was $760. Average sales price this year is $183 versus average sales price of $540. Again, like we've talked about numerous times, when you're talking 1 or 2 units, it's impossible to do any percentages.
Thank you, Dave. Now for the Reading market. For single-family sales for the second quarter of 2014, we had 63 units sell compared to the second quarter of 2013, we had 81 units sell. So that number is down 22%. And to echo what Dave was saying, that is that we had very limited inventory at the beginning of the year. And these numbers that we're talking about, the second quarter, are really the spring market. And so this is kind of the bulk of, the sales. And we just had very limited inventory. So it's down 22% for that quarter. Having said that, the average list price in 2013 went from $478 up to $518 this year, which was an increase of about 8%, and the average sales price went from $475 up to $525, which was almost 11%. Again, the heyday of those property selling for over asking price was really because it was the height of the spring market, and we have seen that slow down a little bit now that we're into the third quarter, but we did see that average sales price increase in 2014 versus 2013. The total days on market dropped from 61 down to 31, which was almost a 50% decrease, and again, there was just such limited inventory that then when properties were coming on the market, they were selling very quickly.
And this is probably a good place to point out, when we show you days on market, a lot of times that includes contingency time, which would be that period of time that you're doing home inspection or you may be signing your purchase and sales agreement. So a lot of times it really is reduced in the real world. You hear of a house is selling overnight. They do sell very quickly in the current market. The thing is, by the time they get recorded into multiple listing, usually home inspection, purchase and sales have been signed, which could maybe double the time. So these days on market could really be half of what they are.
Exactly. In terms of year-to-date for the Reading single families, we had 91 in 2014 versus 114 a year ago. That was down 20%. Again, we keep hearing this decrease in inventory. The average sale price is up just a little bit. The list price was up almost 3% from $493 up to $508. The average sale price was up 5% from $488 to $528. Excuse me. The total days on market dropped to 36 from 74 a year ago. So there again, because there was limited inventory, when things did come on the market, they were getting sold pretty quickly. In terms of the condos, for the second quarter of 2014 versus 2013, there were 53 units this year versus 44 a year ago. That number is up 20%. The average list price jumped from $352 down up to $364, which is a 3.3% increase, and the sales price from $349 a year ago to $368, which was a 5% increase. So steady increase in the Reading condo market. The number of days on market went from 81 up to 125. That's an increase of 54%. That is because a lot of the condos in Reading were new construction, and so that days on market really adds up because they'll list the condo, they'll do pre-construction pricing, or they'll put the condo on the market before they've even broken ground. And so those days on market really add up. If they put it on the market the day it was finished, then it would be much smaller number. So that's just kind of why that data point seems to be a bit skewed. And you'll see that in the year-to-date numbers as well. For 2014, there were 51 units versus in 2013, there were 73 units, a difference of 43%. In terms of the list price, went from $344 up to $365, which is about a 1% increase. The average sales price went from $340 up to $346, which is an average sales price of 2%. And again, the days on market went from 82 to 106. So slight uptick in the pricing for year to date, and then days on market were substantially more because of the new construction factor. Not a ton of multifamilies in Reading. We had 3 units sell this year in the second quarter versus only 2 a year ago. Average price was the difference between $537 and $475, 11% decrease. Again, when you're talking 2 or 3 units, talking percentages is really insignificant. Days on market dropped from 40 to 2. And that's, again, when you're only dealing with 3 units, it's kind of hard to read that data. Or read much into that data. In terms of year-to-date, same thing. 2014, we had 5 year-to-date versus only 2 a year ago. The prices were somewhat consistent. They went from $537 down to $495. When you take into condition and things like that, that's really that 8% difference is really not that substantial. Average sales price dropped from $526 down to $496, which is a 6% drop. And days on market stayed pretty consistent between 40 a year ago and 38 this past year. In terms of land, we only had 1 unit of land sell in the second quarter of 2014 versus 2 a year ago. Again, when you're talking land, the parcels could be any size, so when you're talking numbers, it's a little bit hard to draw conclusions. But a year ago, the average list price was about $600,000. That was only $360 this year. Last year, that sold for $585. This year, it sold for $396. So what you can see is that that 1 unit that was listed, this year was listed for $360 and it sold for $396, which is substantially over the list price because there was just only that one lot, and obviously there was a little bit of a bidding war over it versus a year ago when you had a couple of lots that were on the market. They sold for less than that. Again, this went from 68 days on market down to 23. That 23 probably included time for the buyer to do due diligence on that land. The land year to date, that same one unit for 2014 is the only thing that we've had sell year to date because we just haven't had any land available versus we had 3 a year ago. I'll turn it back to Dave to go over the Lynnfield market.
Thank you. Lynnfield market seeing just as busy as the other communities. For the second quarter of 2014, we were 49 closed units versus a year ago it was 35, which is an increase of about 40%. Average list price of $630 versus a year ago at $575, about a 10% increase. And the average sales price would be $610 versus a year ago at $566, which is about a 7.8%. Again, all the communities were falling in that 8 to 9% uptick. Days on market, about 85 days in Lynnfield versus 98 a year ago. So that's a drastic decrease of 13%. Year to date, Lynnfield single families have closed 64 versus 54 a year ago. That's about an 18.5% increase. Average list price of $618 versus a year ago of $540. That's a 14.3% increase. Average sales price of $598 versus average sales price a year ago of $527. A 13.4%. So again, year to date, you saw a bigger uptick than just the last quarter. So a lot of the price appreciation goes back to the winter months, which there was just no inventory. And if people really wanted to buy something, they were in those bidding wars. Days on market is down from 100 to 91. Again, that's probably some more on longer and then substantially less for others. The Lynnfield condo market is healthy as well. Total number of units for the second quarter was 7 versus 5 a year ago. That's about a 40% increase. The average list price for Lynnfield condos was $648 versus a year ago $446, and that's a 45% increase. Average sales price of $649.9 versus an average sale price a year ago of $424.4, which is a 50% increase. The total days on the market is 175 versus 238. Again, it's down about 28%. Drastic reduction. The year-to-date numbers for condo is just as good. The total number of units of Lynnfield closings was 11 versus 10 a year ago. The average list price of $640 versus a year ago of $404, which is a 58% increase in Lynnfield condos. Average sales price of $643 versus a year ago of $389.6 is a 65% increase. Again, that has some new construction built in there, and new construction generally comes on higher than your average existing inventory. Days on market is pretty much relevant, 212 days to 203 days. The Lynnfield multifamily market, again, like North Reading, very non-existent. And the Lynnfield land, each year had 1 closing, basically the same numbers. Average sale price this year, $435 versus last year, $440. 20 days in the market this year versus 46 last year. Again, very, very similar both years. Year to date, the same numbers pretty much. So again, you had 1 unit this year in all 6 months of Lynnfield land close.
Great. Rounding up the territories we cover with the Andover market. For single family sales for the second quarter of 2014, we had 102 units sell versus 108 last year. 5% difference, but relatively flat. The average list price in 2013 for the second quarter was $616 versus this year was $656. So that was up about 6%, kind of in that same ballpark that we've been talking. The average sales price went from $609 up to $643. So that was also up about 6%. Total days on market went from 65 up to 74. Again, that included having people do their inspections and so on and so forth. That was up, up a little bit from last year. For year to date, for 2014, there were 147 units sold versus 148 last year, so very flat. The sales price went from $616 up to $642, so that was up 6%. And then the average sales price went from $609 up to $628, so that was an increase of about 9.5%. The total days on market dropped a little bit from 84 down to 81. In the condo market, the 2014 second quarter number of units sold were 31 versus a year ago that was 28. So that was up 10%. The average list price went from $294 up to $338, which was a 15% increase in price, which is a great great appreciation. In terms of sales price, it went from $289 up to $333. So that was also 15% average sales price increase. Quarter 2014 second quarter versus 2013 second quarter. The days on market stayed unchanged, actually, both 78 days on market. In terms of the year-to-date figures, for 2014, there were 50 units sold versus 42 a year ago. The price went down a little bit from $299 to $279, which was a 6.7% decrease. And the average sales price went from $294 down to $275, which was a 6.5% decrease. And the total days on market decreased from 84 down to 75. Multifamilies, not a lot of multifamilies in Andover. We did have 5 sell in the second quarter though, and that was compared to 1 a year ago. And the average list price last year was $379.9. This year it was $396. So somewhat flat, 4% difference. And the average sales price last year, they had full price $379.9. This year the average sales price was $375. So about a 1% difference. Days on market dropped from 44 down to 32. In terms of year-to-date, we had 7 units sell both in 2013 and 2014 for the first 6 months. The pricing was pretty consistent as well. Last year, the average was about $420 for the list price, and this year it was $416, so a 1% difference. Last year, the average sales price was $399 versus this year was $375, so 11% difference. And the total days on market last year went from 140 down to 41 this year. Again, there was that little bit of that frenzy when there wasn't anything on the market to buy. Things were selling rather quickly. In terms of the land, there was no land sold in the second quarter of 2014 in Andover. There were two units a year ago, but again, nothing this year. And that was actually for the first 6 months of this year. There was nothing to report. So that concludes our stats, and we'll now turn it over to the spotlight to talk about the specific properties that we want to cover in each of the North Reading, Lynnfield, and Andover markets. And this time, we thought we'd do something a little bit differently. We thought we'd talk about what $700,000 can buy you. So that price point was a very hot price point this spring. And so we'll kind of cover something from each of the communities and show you what $700,000 will get you. We'll start, Dave, with you in North Reading.
Okay. The first property we're going to talk about is 31 Spruce Road in North Reading. It's right in the heart of Ridgeway Estates. It was listed for $659,000 and actually sold $41,000 over asking at $700,000. It's a 2,800 square foot colonial sitting on an acre of land. The house was beautifully maintained. You can see on the pictures the exterior had stone frontage, had a 3-car garage, had a beautiful deck with a gazebo type enclosure on the back. I had a master bedroom with an oversized master bath that did need completing, but the space was already there. Had very, very nice 2-story kitchen, 2-story family room, which was just ideal for entertaining. Again, listed at $659,000 and sold for $700,000. Right in the peak of the frenzy, did an open house, had people coming out all different directions, and had multiple offers. And that frenzy is pretty much gone, but that set the new base for the prices in town.
Great. I'm going to focus on one of the Reading sales that actually had very similar list price and sales price. 52 Blueberry Lane in Reading was listed for $659.9, sold for $705. Again, right in the height of the frenzy. It was listed on March 20th. They had an accepted offer by March 25th. It sold the end of May, right in the height of when multiple offers, over asking, bidding wars, and so on and so forth. This was all about the location. This was an ideal location, and it was completely updated. It was in the Wood End neighborhood, which is one of Reading's top neighborhoods. It was a 9-room, 4-bedroom, 2.5-bathroom property. It was a ranch, and ranches are actually becoming back in fashion. As the baby boomers are aging, they're wanting to do fewer and fewer stairs. So we're seeing that ranches are actually getting quite a bit of activity, which is different than the colonials that have been kind of capturing the majority of the market in recent years. This was a 2,500 square foot property located on about 30,000 square feet. It had a master suite and open concept, 2 fireplaces, beautiful hardwood floors, 3-car garage, and as I said, completely renovated. So when this came on the market at $659, there was no doubt that it was going to sell over asking price, and I'm not sure they expected it to go quite as high over, but it did. It ended up closing out at $705, right in the height of the spring market. Again, that's 52 Blueberry Lane in Reading.
We're going to move on to Lynnfield now. 6 Willoughby Way in Lynnfield. 7-room, 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath colonial. It's a beautiful, elegant, hip-roof colonial. It sits right on a 15,000 square foot lot in the King James Grant neighborhood. It had a beautiful, impressive front foyer. Leads to the front to back living room with fireplace. The kitchen has beautiful breakfast area, serving counters, large dining area. Just absolutely beautiful. The dining room opened to an enclosed sun porch with a deck with a hot tub, expanding the living areas for the summer. Again, about 2,500 square feet. Beautiful half-acre lot. Was listed at $699.9, sold for $707,250, right in the middle of the peak and what we call the frenzy. The frenzy has subsided now because more inventory did come on, but in those first few months of the year, houses that weren't coming on, the other people were able to capture a few dollars because they were willing to put their house on in the wintertime.
Yeah, great. And to round out the communities for Andover, 10 Sherbourne Street in Andover was also listed at $699.9, and it sold for $706, again right at the height. It was listed on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, and was off the market just 8 days later on March 25th. It sold on May 9th. This was an 8-room, 4-bedroom, 3 full and 2 half-bath colonial in the Shawshene Village neighborhood, and it was turn-of-the-century charm. It wasn't the new construction. It was a little bit older feel, very charming. It had custom-built cabinets and shelving, an oversized living room with fireplace, a first-floor guest suite with an additional 3 bedrooms on the second floor, gleaming hardwood floors, beautiful, beautiful property, a backyard that had a pond and a barbecue grill, which was great for outdoor entertaining. And really showed very, very nicely. It was about 4,000 square feet on a little over half an acre of land with 2-car garage as well. And there was about 1,300 square feet in a finished basement to that property as well. So again, sold over asking price, right in the the heart of the market. Not crazy over. It was $699. It sold for $706. So I think some people got nervous that they were outbid in bidding wars that were going for 40 or 50,000 over. Here's one that went 6,000 or 7,000 over, which was pretty normal for properties of this size.
The same as in Lynnfield. That was basically the same number.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that you'll find the 4 that we highlighted today were all kind of in that range, and so that'll give you a sense as to what 700,000 would have bought you in this spring market.
Well, stay tuned. We'll be back in a minute with our special Talk of the Town.
Welcome back.
We're pleased to have with us today the North Reading Youth Services Director, Amy Luckiewicz. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you.
I think a great place to start would be if maybe you could give us a little bit of history on youth services and what your role is within the organization.
Sure. The Youth Services Department was started about 6 years ago. Prior to that, there had been a group of parents and neighbors who decided that they thought the teens of the town needed a little bit more resources, a voice of their own. And so they had approached the town to ask if there could be a department dedicated to North Reading teens, something separate than Parks and Rec. And the town agreed that if they could fundraise and pay for the salary for 2 years, that the town would then consider taking it on as a full-time department, which is exactly what happened. It was installed with bylaws and became a town department, I want to say about 4 years ago or so. The original director was Jenny O'Leary, followed by Erica Hansen, and then I became the youth services director about 14 months ago.
Terrific.
What are some of your typical programming, and who, are there targeted children and things like that?
Sure. Although we do offer programming more for middle school and high school students, I also have 2 programs for elementary kids. So to explain it, it would be best to kind of go by age group.
Okay.
And our first age group would be grades 3 to 5. And my favorite program in that category is a program called Early Act. And Early Act is actually a Rotary model to help children give back to their community, learn community service in a very hands-on fashion. It was started when a mom had approached me and said, I don't really want my son to do any gender-specific club. I really want him to learn about the world beyond North Reading. Have you ever heard of anything like that? And I had, because I had run an Early Act program years prior in one of my old jobs. And so we started with the support of North Reading Rotary, this brand new Early Act Club, and we just finished a year with about 18 students, and we're going to actually outgrow it, I think, for next year, our space. So we're very happy about the turnout for that and the involvement. So our goal with that is to complete a community service, whether it be international or a local service project, one time a month at least.
Wow.
We meet every other Thursday, so it's twice a month, and the kids pay a one-time fee for their t-shirts, and then North Reading Rotary or my department pays for all the supplies after that.
Wow, that's great.
It's wonderful. The other program is the mentoring program, and the mentor program was started prior to my coming to North Reading, and kids can sign up, and they are paired with a high school volunteer mentor. We actually changed our model to have 3 sessions, so 2 10 weeks, and then an 8-week shorter session towards the end of school. Mm-hmm. The kids meet with their mentor for half an hour of homework assistance and then a structured activity. And we started with 12 kids enrolled in that, and I just graduated a group of 40.
Oh, wow.
So we've really grown.
Really taking off.
Huge. We actually outgrew the library. We had to move over to the middle school cafeteria for that. Mm-hmm. And I'm already getting calls over the summer for that program.
For next year.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
For middle school kids, once a week we have a middle school youth group, and the youth group could be anything from games to a structured activity around a risk behavior like smoking, and everything in between. We have about 20 regular kids who attend that, but it's open to any child enrolled in North Reading Middle School. Also, for their half days, we offer programming and then vacation activities so that they're home, not doing much on vacation. They can come visit me at the library, and we'll have something going on there. Mm-hmm. For the high school kids, same thing. We have a high school youth group, and they're really funny because it was called High School Youth Group, and they renamed it Amy's Fun Flock. Because they would come and we have a great time. And again, same thing, we could have a structured conversation around a risk behavior, or we could be just working on a project. We also offer them vacation activities, half-day activities, teen movie nights like we're doing this Thursday, and stuff all through the summer. So what I've learned is the summer night field trips for high school kids are best, and then the arts and crafts for the middle school kids love that.
And do you have any assistants? Is it just you that's on the payroll, so to speak, with the town? Do you have volunteers, or how does that all work?
I'm the only paid employee for my department. Oftentimes I get requests from teenagers to volunteer, and they certainly can. I like to position them with the mentoring program. Mm-hmm. I aim them that way first. But it's just me, and I partner with the youth librarian, Emma, and oftentimes Mary Prenny from the Senior Center will offer me space, or North Reading Police will offer information to help run a group on some topic. So I do have partners, but I'm the only paid employee for my department.
It's very collaborative within other departments in the town.
Absolutely.
Very exciting, very exciting. What types of things do you have coming up in the future? It sounds like all of your programs are growing, so, then what are your visions for what's to come?
So I'm very excited because a lot of my job is working with the Community Impact Team. And the Community Impact Team is another collaboration of town department heads to form the board, and I'm going to be overseeing what's called the Youth Substance Use Prevention Action Team. I'm very excited about it because it is definitely a need in this town, and it will cover everything from alcohol, tobacco, heroin, everything that shows up on the Youth Risk Behavior Survey that we'll use to draw our data from. And that team will focus on creative ways to educate and prevent teens. And to give you an example of that, we try to use our best science to make our decisions. So studies have been coming out in the past few years that fear-driven messaging to teens doesn't work. And so we're going to be looking at what is a more positive-based approach. And an example of that would be, did you know 93% of your peers don't smoke? As opposed to saying these are the consequences of smoking. So we're going to be looking very carefully at how we orchestrate that and asking the teens for their input, making sure that they're part of that team. We are going to be applying for a very large federal grant in March, and we're strategically using the next few months to build our action team so we have the strongest possible application. A lot of towns surrounding us have this grant, and we're kind of a whole. So Melrose, Wakefield, Reading has it, Lowell has it, and we don't. And so we want to make sure that we have a strong application going forward. And I think one of the things that'll make us stronger is to make sure that we have a teen collaboration in that mix.
And if you do get that grant, how will that funding be used? Will it be purely on messaging, or will it be on different programming, or what are your, and that might be part of your application, so I don't want to
That's okay.
Spoil anything, but what will you use that funding for?
Well, one of the great things about my job is I'm allowed to collaborate with other towns. And I've been working with the Melrose Coalition as well as the Wakefield Coalition, and they were very successful in getting a grant, so I like to kind of look at their budget and how they spent money. One of the items that they've been very successful in spending is to hire a full-time youth prevention worker. So somebody that will just focus on these grant objectives, and we could pay for that out of the grant. Some other things could be marketing for our drug take-back program that we have with North Reading Police. We could use it to actually pay teens to do what are called shoulder taps. So example, I'm an 18-year-old teen in North Reading, and I go to a liquor store and I ask you, could you please buy for me? I'm not 21. And if you say no, we thank you for saying no. And if you say yes, we hand you a little card that says, did you know what the law is, and you need to help protect teens.
So you're putting like teens like almost undercover? Like
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's a partnership with North Reading Police. Another strategy like that is teens can be paid to go and try to do alcohol compliance checks, where they'll go to a bar or a restaurant or a liquor store and try to purchase illegally.
And so they're being paid to do that, so it's kind of like that hidden consumer.
Yep.
And will they then be, in trouble? Will the police come in and have that be like
That's a great
an
question.
actionable?
Actually, a police
offense?
officer goes with them, and if they're caught, the police have the option of issuing citations, or they can use this as a warning. And we don't do anything blindsided. Our plan will be to put press releases saying, our teens are going to be doing this.
Well, it's the law.
It's the law,
but
This is what we're going to be doing. Nobody should be blindsided by this. It's not a new law.
Right.
And this is going to be happening. My favorite part about what our model is going to have is those teens that go off and do these shoulder taps or they do these alcohol compliance checks are going to report back to our team what their experiences were. And in fact, we've actually loaned out some of our teens to go to surrounding communities to do this, so they don't know or recognize the teenagers.
Right.
And they came back and reported saying, I was just so shocked when somebody said, yes, I'll buy for you. I didn't even...
Like a random stranger.
A random stranger. And he said, I didn't expect him to say yes at all, and when he did, and I was just kind of caught off guard. And I don't know what would make an adult say that. And that was really great insight for us, and I really valued that. And we're going to be looking for those teens to give us more of that feedback.
That's great. So what teens, are you targeting a certain demographic, or, anybody that's a North Reading resident that's of the high school, middle school age, is that your, target
Absolutely.
group?
If you live in this town, then you are welcome to all the services we offer, whether it be a parent calling us, and I encourage parents to call us when they have concerns. Some of the most current concerns are things like cutting and substance use, where they can call me and say, I need a referral, or I don't know where my insurance will take. Can you help me find a bed for my child? We can help with that. We also have some teens who are wonderful peer models, and so I think oftentimes youth services has the connotation that a kid needs to be at risk. And although, of course, I welcome those teens to become involved in our programs. They don't have to be. Anybody who lives in the town is welcome to participate.
So it sounds like there's some great social services that are offered, as well as some great leadership opportunities as well for some of the
Absolutely.
teens.
How many kids would you say take advantage of the program being in place?
Over the year, including the summer and school year, probably anywhere from 50 to 60, what I would call regulars. Those kids that I see week to week, the kids that text me, that Facebook me, that Snapchat me. We definitely have peaks and valleys. The summer is a lower time for us when kids go on vacation and it's difficult to schedule. And I would say for sure the autumn is our peak season.
Really? What
Like
would make
back to
the
school,
autumn?
or
Back to school.
That's why.
When we kick off new programming. Although that having been said, again, we just grew that mentoring program to 40 in the spring. So anything can happen. I really haven't been able to identify any sort of pattern necessarily, and we do look at that stuff.
Yeah. And I'm sure as more kids belong, the other kids will start coming too.
That happens all the time where I have kids drop in. And for the most part, that's fine, although I do need a permission slip for them to be involved in programming. Kids will say, oh, this is my friend Kim, can she come? And of course you can, you know, and then we just make sure I talk to your parent and that we have a conversation, they know that you're with me, and that's absolutely fine.
That's terrific. What a valuable resource for the community. It really is excellent.
And I have to say that not many towns have a youth services department. If they do, oftentimes it is funded by a grant that's going to expire on a certain day or a certain year. And for the town to what I would consider invest in their youth is really a unique thing and valuable.
Yeah.
and it all came from volunteers, from parents and neighbors, like you said, that saw the need and put it into action, which
Absolutely.
is great for the community.
And to your point, if we didn't have volunteers like that to work on our community impact team, to work on youth services, my subcommittee, which I am always looking for members to join our youth services committee. We meet once a month. If we didn't have those volunteers or those ideas, it wouldn't be where it is today.
Do you have specific needs from the community?
So I guess for some of the things that we would need from the community are definitely telling their neighbors about it, telling kids about it, letting them know that most of our stuff is free. But because it's free, we have a revolving account. And so we do accept donations, and what that goes to pay for is either supplies for the free programming, or it goes to subsidize anybody who needs financial aid for our programs.
Okay, so you said that the Rotary sponsored the third to fifth grade program, for example. Do you have other partners in the community that fund specific groups or projects, or is it all town funded through the taxpayer dollars, or how does?
Great question. Actually, we just accepted a donation from the Reading Co-op Foundation to pay for a group of our kids to go whitewater rafting.
Oh, wow.
And we wanted this to be a real outdoor education, not just a fun recreational thing. It's an outdoor education, so we're actually bringing an outdoor education specialist with us. So while we're up there on the downtime, they're going to be learning about their natural surroundings, and it's going to be great. And it was all paid for by a grant from Reading Co-op.
That's wonderful.
Which was wonderful. And I'm happy to take sponsors for any of our programs. Probably the most expensive program to run is the mentoring program, and that's because of supplies with pencils and paper. And like I said, every time we meet, we also do a group activity, and those might have a cost. I didn't mention that the people that plan those group activities for the mentoring are the mentors. And so oftentimes they have really lofty goals about what they want to do for those kids for a half an hour, and we have to be really careful about how we fund that.
Sure. I'm sure they have all the teenagers have all these great
They
ideas.
do,
Want
yeah.
to go whitewater rafting every week.
Yep, that'd be great. But yes,
When they learn about budgeting, that will be a real education for them.
Well, funny you mentioned that, because they have to go through an orientation process, and that was something that I left out last year, and that proved to be something that we're going to need this year as a little consideration of a budget.
Wow.
Isn't that generational though? The kids today don't realize the cost of things, and it's nice to have that as part of the mentorship.
And I will tell you too that the kids, the mentors often say to me, "Oh, I'll buy it. I'll buy that stuff," and they're spending $50, $60 for supplies for their mentees. We can't have the kids doing that.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate the offer, but that's really not how we're supposed to operate. That having been said, you did make me think of another program we have coming up that's in development, so this is kind of a sneak peek. It's called a reality fair, and it's based on a program that a Western Mass Rotary Club does for their local community. And what will happen is it's going to be run at the high school, and we'll let Mr. Bernard decide what age is appropriate. But in this case, juniors come in and they go to different stations under the occupation that they did a little research on. So some might come in and say, I want to be an airline pilot, and this is what you make. Now you have to go and purchase clothing, insurance, a vehicle, lodging, and they have all these options. Do I have this month enough to go to the Bruins game? Do I have this enough money this month to go to Starbucks versus something else? And they have to make those decisions. Throughout this event, there's also credit counselors.
Oh.
So they can come and get advice from those credit counselors, and this is all volunteer based, so it's taking quite a bit to put together. But luckily for us, the model is already done. So it'll just be a matter of grabbing community partners, which is another thing we'll be needing. So people to volunteer at that event, retailers for sure, insurance agents, real estate agents, because they have to find a place to live, those who rent or lease vehicles, all of these things that kids are going to have to purchase virtually will need on that day.
What a great idea to get that instilled in them before they go off to college and have to budget their own money, whether it's for rent or books or,
To go
nights out.
to plan this event, I myself volunteered to do 2 of them. To just see what was best practices. And some of the comments from the students when I was a credit counselor was, I wish I came to you sooner for advice. I wish that I hadn't bought the SUV. Maybe I can get away with a more economic car. Those conversations that were very real, although a virtual setting, it made them think, and it was great. So we would love to do that.
They're all going to want to be professional athletes, though. Well, so they have the budget to buy everything.
And we'll see if we're going to maybe randomize the distribution of that, because we thought of that too. Wouldn't we all love that?
It'd be great to have the endless pocketbook. But if people have questions or are looking for more information, how can they reach out to you to get that information?
Sure. The best way to get a hold of me is through email. So they can email northreadingyouthservices@gmail.com. Or also, if they have questions or would like to volunteer for the community impact team, that's northreadingcit@gmail.com.
Great, and the website will be on our site as
Thank
well. Any other questions?
Well, I'm so impressed. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks.
And folks, your tax dollars at work. This is one time you can really be proud. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Okay, well, welcome back. Well, that was great to have Amy. Isn't she a wealth of knowledge?
And what a testament to the community of North Reading for having the vision to have that type of programming.
I know it, yeah. It's very, very valuable. As I said, to have your tax dollars doing something so good really makes you feel good.
Absolutely.
Well, we're going to move on now. Kim's going to give us the feature that we call Beantown and Beyond.
Well, Dave, the property I'd like to feature today is 4 Belfort Street in Dorchester's Savin Hill. It was a 3-family home. It needed a lot of work. It was maintained by the same family, lovingly well they could, but it was an older woman who ultimately passed away, and it was the children selling the estate. And so it hadn't had much work done to it. It had things that needed to be done were done when they needed to be, but nothing cosmetic in a long, long time. So it was a 3-family home. We had it was on and off the market quite a bit. The ultimate buyer actually, I think, got a very good deal. It was listed for $550 and it sold for $522,500. It is a hot area. Savin Hill is a great area in Boston. Wonderful location. The issue with this property was that it was a 3-family that was converted to a 2-family, but was legally back to a 3-family. So there was some back and forth between the legality of it, and they ended up finding out that it was in fact a 3-family. So he got a 3-family home for maybe closer to 2-family pricing, which was great. The one thing I want to highlight about this property is the buyer actually used an FHA loan, which is a government-backed loan. And when you deal with buyers that are using this type of product, you as a seller have to be accommodating to it because the program won't allow for certain things. You can't have any paint that needs to be scraped and things like that. They're very particular, more than a normal bank appraiser would be. There is a certain checklist that has to be complete in order for the bank to approve the FHA. So what had to happen in this specific scenario, and I just share this because as there are sellers in our audience maybe getting ready to sell and say, we're going to put it on the market as it is, that's fine. most of the time, but if you do get a buyer that has these special requirements, you sometimes need to be accommodating and allow the buyer to come in and make some repairs beforehand, or make the repairs yourself. And they might be repairs that you weren't anticipating doing, but you have to get the loan to go through. So it was, you know, a little bit of, you know, teamwork required. The buyer had to be flexible, the seller had to be flexible, but at the end we were able to get everything done. It took a little bit of extra time and effort, but it was able to be sold, and the buyer's thrilled. I spoke with him earlier this week, and he's already has the renovation done, and he's got it rented out, and he's really enjoying the property. So that was 4 Belfort Street in Savin Hill.
Yeah, the renovation loans also are FHA, and you actually get an FHA consultant to go through and help you determine what your renovation costs are going to be. So if there's anybody interested in any more information on that, please feel free to give us a call.
You can reach out to us with any questions at price.thishouse@century21.com. And now for the wrap-up.
Now for the wrap-up. Something to think about. Today we'd like to leave you with 13 Heritage Way in North Reading. It's a beautiful 2,500 square foot home, sits on a gorgeous corner acre lot in a very, very desirable neighborhood in North Reading, down off the Chestnut Street, Haverhill Street intersection area. It has beautiful gardens, has a multi-level deck in the rear, which does lead to a pool, has a brick patio that leads to a hot tub. Once you go inside, you're very, very much impressed with the beautiful hardwood floors on the first floor. The living room is nice, oversized. The dining room has your chair rail, your wainscoting, your decorative ceiling. The kitchen is really unique in that they have a built-in breakfast bar, has concrete countertops, has a bar sink, very, very nice, very efficient 6-burner professional grill, has a full bath on the first level. Upstairs, you do have a gorgeous sized family room with fireplace, has 4 bedrooms, 2 more baths, has a walk-up attic, has a full unfinished basement, and it's currently listed for $725. It really is an excellent value. So if you have any interest, feel free to give us a call.
Thank you for watching this episode of Price This House. We look forward to seeing you after the summer market and as we enter into the fall, and hopefully things will continue to pick up as they have been, and hopefully it'll continue to be a strong market for us to report back on. For Dave and me, we want to say thank you for watching.
Enjoy your summer. Thank you.
Thank you.